Hi, welcome parents and families to our live session tonight. I really appreciate you all being here with us. My name is Ann DeLuca, and I serve as director of our K-State Parents and Family Program, and I'm going to serve as your moderator tonight. The goal of this session is to provide some updates for fall 2020, and then we're going to turn things over to you to answer some of the questions that you may have. So kind of an agenda for tonight, I'm going to read through the list of panelists that we have with us tonight. And then once I've read through the list, each of them is going to share an update pertinent to their areas for fall 2020. And again, then we're going to turn things over and ask and answer some questions from all of you. So our panelists tonight, we have Dr. Thomas Lane, Vice President of Student Life and Dean of Students. We have Dr. Jeannie Brown-Leonard, Vice Provost for Student Success. Dr. Derek Jackson, Director of Housing and Dining Services and Associate Vice President of Student Life. Robert Gomez, Director for the Office of Student Financial Assistance. Dr. Jennifer Miller, Assistant Director for Health Promotion at Lafine Health Center, and Abby King, Associate Nursing Director at Lafine Health Center. So again, those are our panelists for the night, and we are going to get an update from each of them, and then we'll turn things over to all of you. So a couple of housekeeping items. First, feel free to submit those questions into the chat, into that YouTube chat. We will be answering questions all night. Any questions that we don't have time to answer, our team will be following up in the next couple of days. This session will go 1 hour, and if you're unable to stay with us the entire night, that's fine. We are recording this live session, and you can actually access it at the same link that you used to get here tonight. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started with our first round of updates, and we're going to start with Dr. Thomas Lane.
Thanks, Ann. Thank you also to all the K-State families joining us for this conversation. I've shared before that 2020 thus far has been a year like no other, and the last 5 months especially so. We've spent the last few months through Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting preparing for the upcoming academic year and welcoming students back to campus. In fact, this week we reopened the Kansas State Student Union and the Recreation Center. We began welcoming back our resident assistants, and we welcome new students participating in our Project Impact programs. And though it's certainly different seeing students in face coverings and keeping socially distant during programs, it was so great having the chance to interact with students in person after so many months of remote operation. As you might imagine, COVID-19 has significantly impacted all of our student life areas. We've had to think differently about how we prepare for a fall semester that's unlike any that we've known. But while the upcoming fall semester might be different than past fall semesters, what hasn't changed is our excitement to bring students back on campus and our dedication to providing a high quality K-State student experience. So as we begin tonight's visit, I just want to thank you for being patient with us as we work through and we continue to work through challenges involved in helping preserve the health and safety of our university community. Just a few of the steps that we've taken to mitigate COVID-19 include de-densifying our residence halls by about 30%, identifying quarantine and isolation space for our on-campus students, ensuring we're able to physically distance in the classroom and other campus spaces, offering events that don't involve the mass gathering of students, and continually educating our campus community on how we keep each other safe through our Every Wildcat a Wildcat program. And I know that you'll hear a little bit more about that tonight from Dr. Miller. Tomorrow, students will receive information through their K-State Today newsletter about how to take our mandatory face covering training, and they'll also be sent a checklist for steps that they need to take before coming to campus. So please encourage them to be on the lookout for that. Over the last few days, I've received some questions from families concerned about testing for COVID-19 at K-State. We are currently testing symptomatic students, faculty, and staff at our Lafine Health Center. And at this time, we do not plan on mass entry testing for asymptomatic returning students, faculty, and staff. And that's based upon Center for Disease Control and Kansas Department of Health and Environment guidance that came out on July 28th. The current KDHE guidance states that testing should focus on symptomatic students, faculty, and staff, which is what our testing protocol currently is aligned with. But please know that we continue to evaluate our testing protocol based upon our medical advisor's guidance with the goal of increasing capacity for a robust testing program during the semester. If you haven't done so, I would encourage you to please make sure that you're familiar with the university's COVID-19 website, which will have the most up-to-date information. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions throughout your students' time at K-State. Thank you for the role that you've played in your student choosing us, and I hope that we get the chance to meet in person soon, and I look forward to our discussion. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Thomas. Next, we would like to hear an update from Dr. Jeannie Brown-Leonard, Vice Provost for Student Success.
Good evening, everybody. It's really great to be with you. Like all of the panelists this evening, we are so excited about welcoming students back to campus. We really can't wait. It's like, the first day of school all over again. We love it. Faculty are working tirelessly to adapt their classes to the fall semester. They're loading their course profiles into Canvas, which is our learning management system, working on those course syllabi. The bookstore is taking orders for books and supplies. Offices are opening up. We are following very thoughtful guidelines to make sure that we preserve the health and safety of our students, our faculty, and our staff. So, and other campus visitors that come to our campus. We're super excited. These academic advisors are very busy at this point in time. We are talking with students about the fall course schedules and trying to make sure that the plan going forward makes sense for each individual student. Their conversations range from how to be successful in an online class to how to be involved in campus activities to how to gently ask someone to please put on a face mask, right? So there are lots of details that we're trying to cover through conversations with the advising community. On Monday, the 3rd of August, all students received a very important email message from our university registrar talking about the changes in course modality. That's one of our new buzzwords on campus, the ways in which our courses are going to be taught fall semester. Students were asked to consult CASIS, our student information system, to identify which courses on their course schedule might have been adjusted, and then to reach out to advisors to work on guidance on how to best approach the semester, perhaps maybe making some changes or setting a course forward that would make sense for their degree goals. Our COVID-19 website that Dr. Lane mentioned is up to date and full of good information. We encourage our students to pursue that and review those frequently asked questions. The bottom line is that we're here to help. We are here to support your students in the transition to campus this fall. Again, we have been reaching out to your student to offer help and remind your student to look at that K-State email, right? To use that frequently and be aware of the resources that are coming through email. We also have a Student Success Resources Canvas course, a great way to learn about what resources are available and how to access them right there in that Canvas homepage. So all students, new students have been enrolled in that course for the fall. We're excited to have a really exciting virtual convocation program on Sunday, the 16th of August at 5:30. It is available online. And again, families, we encourage you to participate. It's not something that you normally would be a part of, but in this virtual landscape, you are welcome to join us. And again, please call and email. Let us know how we can be supportive as you think about what to expect. And if you have any lingering questions, hopefully not after tonight, we'll be able to get those questions answered. So again, thanks for letting me join you this evening, and we look forward to a good conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Brown-Leonard. Next, could we hear an update from Dr. Derek Jackson?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure of working with the Housing and Dining team, and we have spent the summer getting ready for our students to return. In fact, they're beginning to come. Our resident assistants began their training on Monday, and we started hosting Project Impact students. Our community assistants, which help run our front desk, they came back and started training, and our team has done a nice job of pulling into the needed things that we're going to have to take in, normal as well as the abnormal stuff related to COVID, and our team's done a nice job of that. Health and safety is one of our key first and foremost things. And I would encourage you to discuss with your student the best ways to be safe and follow the guidance. Help them help each other be safe. And I know we'll have that be successful, and I know our RAs and our senior staff that help run the residence halls will be part of the support of your students if they have questions and as they begin the semester here at Kansas State. We are doing the move-in a little differently this year. Our residence halls will begin an official move-in on Sunday. We're doing it, as most of you probably already recognize, in a scheduled way. Normally it's like a big circus. Normally we have a lot of help, a lot of volunteers that will jump in and help students move in and help families get settled. Obviously this year we're trying to spread people out and have less cross pollination of people and germs potential. So we don't have a lot of volunteers, and we don't have the kind of the circus atmosphere, which is disappointing to me because that energy is something that I think really does start the semester off. So we have unassisted students are able to bring as many helpers as they need. Make sure you wear your mask when you arrive. The front desk and the RAs and the senior staff in the building will be there to help. Make sure you get to where you need to go. One of the things that is different this year based on COVID is our dining program. Our residence halls, students eat in our dining centers, and it will be all carry out for the first start of the semester. And carry out meaning you walk in and you'll get to select from a lot of different platforms, hot meals to go. And it's unfortunate because I think a lot of the heartbeat of our campus is our dining centers, the long tables and the floors. And as we work into the semester, we may evolve and change, as we know, to easier to start a little more on the conservative side, which means our students are going to do they're going to carry out their food. We have opened our dining center. Kramer Dining Centers, which is our first one to open, started serving meals, and I know our team is doing its best to provide a hot, nutritious meal that's at the quality, that level that we like. And so I would just encourage you to work. Those that have special diet needs, we've got actually a pretty special app that was built to help our students that have dietary challenges to work with our dietitians. I think we have about 16 dietitians that work in our department and are helping our students adapt to this new world and diet stuff. One of the challenges that we were faced with this year is our Derby Dining Center, which is on the east side of the campus, one of our two on the east side, was in renovation. And we were expecting to open Derby Dining Center in August for opening, but the COVID virus took its toll on our contractor and subcontractors. And so many of our trades were gone for several weeks at a time. Our drywallers, our fire extinguishers, our fire sprinkler folks, electricians, window installers, it did just kind of hit different bad times. Unfortunately, Derby Dining Center will not be open. So Van Zyl Dining Center, which is literally across the street, I tell people I could throw a baseball from Van Zyl to Derby. That's how close they are. Will be our dining center on the east side. And because Van Zyl is a little smaller, we'll supplement with a food court, our food truck court. And so we have contracts with 3 food trucks that will help supplement and give students some variety and some options. They can eat in Kramer, they can eat in Van Zyl, they can eat in our food trucks. I'm excited. I was talking to my daughter who's a student here, and I was telling her what the food trucks were, and she got really excited because that's one of my favorites. So I know it'll be a popular option. We're planning for a month of that. And that's our schedule right now with Derby, is that it's slated to open around the 14th of September. But once again, the virus has a vote in all this, as Dr. Lane always likes to say, is we have our best plans and then all of a sudden there's this disruption. I would also add a little bit, I'm switching gears a little bit on our quarantine and isolation. We've created a COVID cares team. And so we know that we have students in quarantine right now that are serving their 14 days of travel related quarantine. Those students aren't by themselves. I know between our health department at Lafine, as well as our counseling services and our student life team, we're going to be following up with our students, making sure that they have the support and the care that they need and the answers questions. And many of our students that have, in the spring, we had students that also were in travel related quarantine or actually COVID isolated students. It takes support. And I know both in family as well as our university will be there for our students. Our health department will do a nice job as coordinating that as well. Last thing I'd touch on is RA programming. it'll look a little different. Normally we have large events that really gather students together and really build the culture of our campus. We're really focusing on smaller programs on the floor level and one-on-one connections and trying to gather people. They have also begun thankfully the younger generation's better at technology than I am, working into the virtual communities. And they've adapted greatly to the use of new technology and gathering students together. And so they're brainstorming, how do we make community in this new world that we're in, and trying to support our students. So we look forward to having our students return beginning on Sunday and throughout the rest of the week, and start with Wildcat warm-up as well. So look forward to your questions and to the semester.
Thank you so much. Next, could we hear from Robert Gomez?
Hi there, welcome. I'm really excited to be part of this panel discussion this evening. Like my colleagues, the Office of Student Financial Assistance has also had a lot of trial and tribulations, I guess you could call them, as we've moved through this year. Most of our staff has been working off campus, like a lot of folks, and but we've been kept going, and we are slowly moving back into our building on campus. So much so that a couple of weeks ago, we began opening up our phone lines. For a while, we did not have any phones available. We're now back up. And so if you want to reach our office by phone, you can. The primary mode of reaching our office is probably going to be phones and then email at this time. On Monday of this next week, we will be back in the office to some foot traffic. And what's already been touched upon is that obviously we're going to be taking the precautions that everybody's been talking about face masks and things along those lines. One of the things I guess I would maybe start out with is one of the things that has been really exciting for us is we started doing more Zoom financial aid counseling than we've done before. So if you have some concerns and you find that perhaps you're not comfortable coming to the office or visiting with a financial aid advisor, you can reach out to us again, either email or with a phone call and say, look, I don't want to jeopardize my house. I don't want to necessarily come in. But can we set something up via Zoom? And we've got staff that are willing to go ahead and just set up a Zoom session or just give you an old-fashioned phone call. But we want to be sure that we answer your questions, but we want you to be sure that you're comfortable with how you want to interact in this new environment that we're in. The big news for our office is we've been preparing for several months now, obviously for the fall term, is this weekend, actually, we are going to disperse financial aid. So it's a huge, big event for us. So that's going to happen. Some of you have already received, or I should say probably most of you have already received your university bill. And perhaps you've been looking over the university bill, and you usually will see like the dollar amounts assessed, and then you'll see what's known as anticipated financial assistance, right? Well, this weekend, that anticipated aid turns into actual aid. So it basically gets applied to your student's account. So that'll happen this weekend. So that may be something you can check out, or your student can check out. Come Monday morning, you should be able to get into cases and take a live look at where their account sits. So that's one of the big things that we're working on right now. One of the other things I wanted to touch on briefly is, obviously, some things like we've mentioned already, like my colleagues have mentioned, is some things have not changed. And one of the things that hasn't changed for us is that the financial aid office is really here for you, and we want to help you in any way we can. So we want to know, and we welcome unusual circumstances that have affected you and or your families, right? And one of the things we've always done is we've always had a process where families can do what's known as a professional judgment. These are individuals who have filed a FAFSA, a free application for federal student aid. And as you probably recall, the FAFSA really reflects household income from about 2 years ago. So it's actually based on tax and income information of 2018 or calendar year 2018. Under these circumstances that we find ourselves in, we understand that so much has changed within our community, within everyone's community, in terms of job losses, layoffs, even just cutting back on regular income, right? Maybe just hours were cut back. If you find you have any of those circumstances, I really hope that you reach out to our office, and we would like the opportunity to take a look and see if there's anything that we can do. We have the authority by the federal government to go into your FAFSA and premised on some documentation we might ask for from you, we can go ahead and make some changes to your FAFSA information, which for a lot of families, it ends up giving us the opportunity to provide you with some additional financial assistance. So I definitely want to, I would be totally remiss if I didn't actually emphasize that with you this evening. Looking at a couple other things, one of the things that I also want to touch on is once you log back into cases, right, on Monday and take a look around, do take a look to see if your student has any outstanding to-do items. And those to-do items from the financial aid office, what we do is we will go ahead and list to-do items in cases. In other words, if we need some other things yet to be in place to be able to fully process your son or daughter's financial aid. So go ahead and take a look if there's anything there. I say that primarily in mind with a lot of our new incoming students. We have a few extra things that these individuals usually have to take care of, especially if they're taking out a federal student loan, for example. There are a few extra steps that the federal government requires students complete. And while we notify students of this, it's always good to go back into cases and make sure that you have everything there. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it on.
Thank you so much. Next, could we hear from Dr. Jennifer Miller, please?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Miller. Lafine has also had a very busy summer, and I will let Abby update you on the clinical piece of things. But I wanted to share with you about our Every Wildcat a Wildcat campaign that we launched this summer. It is designed to help students know how to have a safe return to campus this fall semester, to know the resources that we have available to them, as well as provide them information on all those things they may have questions on, like what happens if someone in my class tests positive for COVID. So we're really trying to get out as much of that information ahead of time so students will know what course of action they should take, as well as where they can go to access various resources. The exciting thing that we're working on right now is putting together welcome kits for all of the students. So that information actually with a video went out in the K-State Today on Wednesday. But this will include a face covering, a first aid kit, a no-touch key, a lanyard, and some hand sanitizer. And all students will receive that. So this week we are rapidly trying to assemble 20,000 kits and get those out. For students that are in on-campus housing, you will receive yours in your dorm room. Greek housing, if you're living in a Greek house, you'll receive it at your Greek house. Athletics have all received theirs as well. And then for all other students, we will be releasing some specific distribution dates and times next week. So be on the lookout for those. And that is all that I have. I look forward to any questions you have.
Thank you so much for those updates. And finally, can we hear from Abby King?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Abby King, and as Jennifer said, or Dr. Miller said, we are very busy and have been all summer. Our team is really just trying to keep up to date with the most recent guidance from KDHE and CDC, and trying to make those updates to follow those guidelines in our clinic. As Dr. Lane said, we are testing students who are symptomatic for COVID. We have a separate area in our clinic designated for that testing. As far as scheduling goes, it may look a little bit different this fall. Usually students are able to schedule online. Right now we've moved to an phone. So if you want to schedule an appointment, you just give us a call. We go through some screening questions with you, and that way we get you scheduled in the most appropriate part of our clinic. We are designating one side of the clinic for more ill individuals and then the other side for well individuals, so we can take care of them as appropriately as possible. As you'll notice on campus, everyone will have face coverings on, and students will need to wear those when they do come for their appointments also. Otherwise, we're really excited for the students to come back and to assist in any way that we can. If you as a parent or your student have questions, or if your student calls you and says, I don't feel well, just please reach out to us and give us a call, and we will help with your student getting scheduled and figure out what's going on with them. And I look forward to your questions also. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of the updates. Now we're going to switch gears and start answering some of the questions that have been submitted into our chat. And we actually have kind of a first group of questions for Robert Gomez. A couple extra have come in since we last touched base. There's been a lot of questions coming in about using financial aid to pay for textbooks. Could you speak a little bit on that? And also, can families appeal for additional student financial aid if they may have come across a hardship like lost their jobs due to COVID?
Absolutely. I appreciate the question. First off, the way financial aid generally works is typically when a student applies for federal student aid, what will happen is like I said, like I mentioned earlier, we will disperse the aid over the weekend. And what will happen is once the aid has been dispersed and applied to the student's account, the charges that the university has in place there, they'll get paid first. And after that, the remaining money will go to the student. And it'll go to the student one of two ways. We always encourage students to actually sign up for electronic fund transfer, EFT. That's the easiest, most convenient way for students to get their funds. So any excess financial aid goes to them. And it's out of that excess financial assistance that the student will then acquire their books and supplies. So that might be the first part of that question. The second piece obviously is I'm going to go backtrack a little bit. Again, if there have been any, if you or your family have experienced any kind of financial repercussions because of COVID, and there can be all kinds. Before I mentioned the loss of income, but it can also mean for families who have had medical expenses, right, that go above and beyond what insurance would cover, for example. Then we want to know about that, and we have a form on our website. It's under our forms heading, and there is what's known as a professional judgment appeal form. And for individuals who filed a FAFSA, we invite you to go ahead and fill that out as best you can. We have a secure upload functionality where individuals can upload the documents once they've completed them in a secure manner, so that we don't want people attaching things to their emails, because a lot of times there's some sensitive information. And then once we've received that information, we'll be reaching out to the family for further follow-up, definitely.
Thank you. And we have one more follow-up question as well. Will the university be waiving the online fee for classes that have been moved from in-person to online only?
That's a really great question. I'm going to cut to the chase and basically say the fee will not be waived. But having said that, I want to give kudos to the university for what the administration and what Kansas State University has done in general. First off, one of the things that the university did and has done is we have kept our tuition flat from one year to the next. And we've done that irrespective of the fact that the university, it's pretty tough times for the university given the COVID situation. The other thing that we did, and I fully, and everyone here at the university fully understands that the online fees are significant. They are now at $70 per credit hour. But I will say this, that typically our online fees were right. Typically when a student would elect to take an online course, the online fees were $123 that was assessed by the university. And then it could range from anywhere from a few dollars all the way up to $190 per credit hour on top of that from the individual colleges. I guess that's my way of saying that one of the things that the university tried very, very hard to do is, knowing that we would move more students to online and having a need to keep a safe environment, the university actually went out of their way to reduce the fees as much as possible down. Now, having said that, you may wonder what the fees are for. Obviously, they're used for infrastructure to bring the technology to students. We've had absolutely phenomenal work on our faculty side of the house, adjusting and putting together course materials for an online type of experience for the student. And so these are expenditures the university incurred. I will say this as a follow-up on a final note on this. If you find that you have that the additional fee is detrimental to you being able to attend Kansas State University, I do want to hear about it. And I urge you to reach out to the financial aid office. Depending on your situation, I would like to take a look, or have my staff take a look and see if there's any way we can possibly assist you. So I definitely would not want that to discourage you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your answers tonight. This next question is for Dr. Brown Leonard. When will tutoring sign up be available for students?
We're ready. So our tutoring center is actively, they have a wonderful online appointment scheduling system. We are trying to shift it from sort of what used to be called course-based tutoring to more general tutoring. And students who come in early, we know are served well. So tutors I'm signing forms left and right to hire additional tutors. And so anyone interested in the tutoring should go through the Academic Achievement Center website and access the tutoring website and sign up for appointments. And we get started right away. So first week of classes is not too early. So come on in. And again, virtual as well as in-person appointments are possible.
Great, thank you so much. Let's see, this is for Dr. Jennifer Miller. Could you tell us more about the Every Wildcat, a Wellcat campaign, please?
Absolutely. So this was a campaign that was developed out of the Division of Student Life through a partnership with a variety of folks across campus. And we really wanted it to be something where students were getting the information that they needed and wanted so that they felt safe returning to campus. Also, we know that students may be coming back with a lot of different issues and experiences that they have had while they were away. And so we wanted them to, again, know what resources we have available to them. So throughout the summer, we've been putting out some videos as well as posting on social media, and we have it's k-state.edu/EWA, so EWAW, and that has all the information that we've put out. It's really about that risk mitigation and prevention. That's what the goal of this campaign is. And so we will be continuing this throughout the rest of the semester, and as we see different student needs arise, this EWA campaign can be a place where students know that they can go to find the information they need to feel safe here on campus.
Great, thank you. And this next question, maybe for Dr. Jackson or Dr. Lane, what does the process look like if a student tests positive for COVID-19?
So one of the things that working with our Levine Health Center, we will care for that student. And if they're positive and they're not able to isolate in their current environment, or the choice will be if the student can go home, wants to go home, we will obviously let that happen. But we will transport them to an apartment as our first offering is we've, like I said, set aside apartments in Jardine that are self-contained, have a kitchen, washer, dryer, private bathrooms, and we'll support that student with the supplies that they're going to need to be able to live in that space until they are symptom-free. We will work with the health department to make sure that should they need a more extensive medical care, they'll get that as part of this transition from being out in the campus community into the isolation space. The follow-up is going to happen on a daily basis, actually multiple times a day as far as caring for the student, both the mental health, physical health, and campus connection piece of it, and constant care for them. And we have a 24-hour hotline that our COVID care team will be monitoring and being able to respond to, whether it's Monday through Friday or weekends as well. So we're here to help our students work through these trying times.
So the only thing that I would add to Dr. Jackson's response is that if students have tested positive for COVID-19 and they've had any had any COVID-related symptoms and then go into isolation, the student is able to return to in-person classes and university programs and activities after certain conditions are met. So at least 3 days or 72 hours have passed since their recovery, and we define recovery as a resolution of fever without the use of fever-reducing medications. There's an improvement in respiratory symptoms. So for example, an improvement in cough or shortness of breath. And then also at least 10 days have passed since symptoms have first appeared, or for the person who might be immunocompromised, a test-based strategy might be considered in consultation with our infectious disease experts. And then we'll also have our Office of Student Life reaching out with the student as well too, and connecting with that student to make sure that they're communicating with their faculty members, making sure that any missed assignments or exams are able to get addressed. And so again, as Dr. Jackson mentioned, I think we have a good amount of wraparound services for our students who might test positive for COVID-19.
Great, thank you. Let's see, this question is for Dr. Jennifer Miller and Abby King. What are ways that parents and families could spot warning signs of stress in their students, and what resources could you direct parents and families to?
I'll start out. There's some warning signs that parents could look out for. So if your student is maybe eating more than they normally would or less than they normally would, oversleeping or not sleeping as much, disengaging in their normal responsibilities, so not going to class, not connecting with friends, other things, if they normally were very active and all of a sudden they're not very active, those are all signs of your student potentially being stressed and just feeling a little bit of the stress of classes and the change in the semester. Our counseling services, students, they have 8 free classes or sessions that they can go to the counseling services and have individual therapy sessions there. They also have group sessions that students can participate in also. And that's just a really a good way for students to connect with other students that may be experiencing the same things that they're experiencing, and kind of talk through that to help them through. I don't know if Jennifer has any additional things she wants to add to that.
The only thing I would actually add is we also have a departmental student organization here at Lafine that is the Wildcat Ambassadors, and they offer one-on-one peer coaching. So this could be, if you think that part of the stress is due to time management issues, they can help with that. Even just some stress reduction techniques, they can also assist. So that is also a service that we have if they're looking more for that peer-to-peer kind of guidance.
Great, thank you. I think that's really important for our parents and families to be aware of. This question is for Dr. Lane. How are we going to help students not feel isolated during their time at K-State? I thought you could share a little bit about either Wildcat Warm-Up or our Week of Welcome coming up.
Sure. So there'll be a number of activities that will be occurring through Week of Welcome. Our Center for Student Involvement will be putting on those activities. It'll be a full week. Now, it won't be the large type of mass gathering activities, but there'll be smaller activities where you'll be able to pick up information about one of our more than 500 student organizations that are on campus, find out more about local businesses that are wanting to make sure that your student knows that they're there in Manhattan. And then there'll also be lots of opportunities for students to connect in small groups with each other to learn more about university programs and services. And so again, that week will be full of activities. There'll be information coming out about that, I think on Monday in the K-State Today edition. So make sure that your student looks for that program of events.
Great. We still have a lot of questions coming in. Our next one is for Robert Gomez. Does the online fee apply to hybrid and blended classes?
That's a great question, and no, it does not. So the online fee is really for only a course that is totally online. And by the way, if people don't know what necessarily a hybrid class, what the word hybrid means, is it basically means that the class is being taught both in a combination of online and in person. But for hybrid class, there is no online fee.
Great. And a couple follow-up questions with that is, will the cost of attendance be adjusted because of the increased cost of online classes? So essentially, will there be increased financial aid?
There will not be necessarily an increase, but across the board. having said that, again, if a student has, and this has always been the case with our office, we put together a cost of attendance estimate for every student. And that estimate has 5 different components to it. It's a component for tuition fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and then there's a miscellaneous category. So, for example, for our in-state students, that's going to be roughly about $25,000 for an entire academic year. Now, if a family has a situation where they're paying more than our estimate for the tuition and fees, then we would definitely invite the family to come in and visit with us, and we can adjust that cost of attendance to reflect that. And in some instances, we are able to provide more financial aid. This is the same as it's always historically been with our office, where, for example, we base our estimated cost of attendance on tuition fees on 14 credit hours. And we have students come in and say, look, I'm taking 17, 18 credit hours, and we will go ahead and make the adjustment.
That's very helpful. And Robert, if you have time for one more question here. Somebody wrote, if I switch from dorm to off-campus living, does this affect the financial aid I receive, specifically subsidized and unsubsidized loans? Also, if a new scholarship changes subsidized loans to unsubsidized loans, can I change this back?
That's a really great question. So first of all, I would say that your cost of attendance is not likely to go down by living off. Not likely to go up for living off campus, and that just has to do with the fact that the estimate that our office puts together puts a slightly higher cost for living in residence halls than off campus. But having so that would be probably the first part of the answer. The second part of that is, yes, if students have when we put together a student's financial aid package, we are required for the federal student direct loan, we're required to look at how much need that student has. And premised on that, we will package the student with either subsidized or unsubsidized student loans at the time, knowing what we know at the time when we make the package, which is to say that if at a later point in time, the student receives additional scholarships there is a possibility that the additional scholarship might move the subsidized out of the subsidized category into the unsubsidized category. But that's not always a guarantee that happens. It's very individual, student by student. So my suggestion to that question would be, if you go ahead and contact our office, and we'll take a look at your specific situation and see what's in the best for you.
Yeah, that's great. I think the follow-up is great advice. And I know that your office is always so welcoming. We have a couple questions for Dr. Derek Jackson up next. Is there a dining option, perhaps a prepaid punch card, for students that live off campus to eat on campus at the dining hall?
We do normally have an off-campus meal plan that does allow the off-campus student. At this point in time, we're not selling off-campus meal plans because of the potential limitations that we would have on our service because of this year. I do know that the student union has a full assortment of meal options there. And so I would encourage those students that are looking for an off-campus meal plan to consider our student union as a good place to find a good nutritious meal.
Great, thank you. Our next question is for Dr. Jeannie Brown-Leonard. If the campus bookstore substitutes a book or supplies, will the instructor accept them, or should we purchase them from Amazon?
Ooh. So once again, I think that's a highly individualized circumstance. So know that our faculty want to, they work really hard to try to contain costs of all those reading lists and the supplies that we ask students to purchase for a class. But sometimes if the substitution was made with the faculty member's knowledge, then that sounds like a reasonable way to go. When in doubt, contact the faculty member. That's a great opportunity for a quick email consultation to figure out what the right thing is. Sometimes the versions of different resources can be significantly different and enough to make it so that you're not actually on literally the same page as your classmates for a given assignment. Most faculty will be reaching out. We expect all faculty, let me reframe that, to reach out to students in the next couple of weeks before the first day of classes, to be clear about what to expect, to set some expectations. That's a great segue, a great invitation for the student to reach out directly to the professor to ask a clarifying question. But if you have the question now, I would go ahead and ask it now. I think that's a really reasonable consultation, and we want you to be well prepared and feel like you've got the right resources going into the first day of class.
Great. Our next question is back toward Lafine. I think Dr. Jennifer Miller or Abby King, either of you could answer. Will students need health insurance in addition to the care received from the health center?
So you do not have to have health insurance to be seen at Lafine. If you do have health insurance, it'll be just like a normal doctor's office visit. We'll bill your insurance company first, and then whatever's remaining will be billed to that individual. So no, you don't have to have a special insurance to see us. Yeah, that pretty much answers it.
Great, thank you. I like it that we're getting through lots of good questions tonight. We have another one for Robert Gomez. This person typed, I am a student and I have been awarded a scholarship outside of K-State that said it would be issued in late August. If the due date for payment is 8/24, but I haven't received it yet, will I get a refund?
If the due date is, let me make sure I understand the question. So the scholarship is going to be coming in, but it may not be, if the concern is basically that the scholarship may not be in on time, my first suggestion would be that a student contact the sponsor of the scholarship. Find out if the sponsor has already mailed it or not, or send it to us, because typically we get hard copy checks. Or the other thing that the student is free to do is to contact our office, because we get checks in at this time of year. We get mountains of checks coming in terms of scholarships. But the one thing I can say definitively is we're not going to want you to incur any kind of late fee if it's a simple matter that the money didn't come in on time and that's why you were assessed a late fee. So in that case, my office, we would be working, we would want to know about that issue, let us know if that occurs, and we will work with the cashier's office to have that late fee removed.
Great, thank you. Let's see, this next question is for Dr. Lane. If a student tests positive for COVID and isolates, what actions are in place to help alert professors? Will accommodations be made for students to make up homework and tests?
So great question. Yes. So the resource that we would want students to connect with would be our Office of Student Life. And so one of our assistant deans can help work with you as a student in isolation and with your faculty members to let them know what missed assignments might have occurred and be able to advocate for working forward a plan to how to address missed assignments, missed exams. Our Office of the Provost has communicated with our faculty that they expect a lot of grace and flexibility from our faculty members in working with our students, and just having the conversations that I've had with our faculty members, I know that they're willing to do that. And so I think that just making sure that contacting the Office of Student Life, they'll reach out to the student who's in isolation to make sure, as Dr. Jackson had mentioned earlier, for when a student is in isolation, that contact's already going to get made. And so they'll be a great advocate for the student.
Great, and we have another question for you, Dr. Lane.
Yeah.
Will there be workspaces open on campus for students to do their online classes? And could you share with us a little bit about the library, the union, what that's going to look like?
Yeah, so actually I just walked through the union yesterday and was in there today. And so there is less furniture in the union. There's probably, I'd say they probably have about 60% of their furniture, I'm guessing, is what remains. And so everything is set up in terms of achieving social distance. And I know also that Hale Library has that same stance as well too, where they've intentionally went and looked through their furniture and how things are set up so that we can have social distancing in place. So there will be space available for web access. And certainly the union and the library would be two of those places where students would be able to do so in a social distance manner.
Great. And let's see, this is another question for Robert Gomez. What is the deadline for the scholarship checks to reach the financial aid office?
We don't have a deadline per se, so we will take them when they come. So if it's an outside check, it really depends on the sponsor of the scholarship. If it's a private scholarship, and once it comes in, that's when we'll log it in as having arrived. Most of the time we receive from a lot of organizations, it'll be half the amount for the fall and the other half will come in for the spring. So we don't actually set a deadline for it.
Thank you. And this next question is for Dr. Derek Jackson. What is the difference between students who have to isolate if they're living on campus versus the resources available to our off-campus students?
So the on-campus students, we have quarantine space and isolation space. And the distinction is that isolation is for students that are COVID positive, that have been tested, and they're going to be cared for differently than the students that are have been in close contact or needing to be quarantined, which means you don't have symptoms, you don't have the positive test, but you still need to be recommended 14 days away from the community, basically. The off-campus students, the isolation, the on-campus housing will be available for students that have to isolate, meaning that they've tested positive, and that we are, once again, as the university, going to have set aside spaces for those students. The best advice, and I think this is from the Riley County Health Department as well as our Levine Health Center, if you can isolate in your current living environment, you're going to be much more successful. You're going to be closer to your resources. But if you're not able to do that because of roommate situations or other dynamics, the off-campus student will have an isolation space. We won't have enough space to do all the quarantine is sort of the thought. And so students that are living off campus will have to quarantine in their residence space where they reside here in Manhattan.
Great, thank you. And we have another question for Dr. Jeannie Brown-Leonard. We talked about tutoring a little bit earlier in this session. What other student success resources are available to our students?
Well, there are a lot, which is really good news, but let me try to tick off a few of them. First of all, we have a really strong academic advising system that is decentralized, right? So it's housed in all the colleges. And the dean's offices that support those, often they're called student success centers, are really great first line of resources for students. We also have a lot of supplemental support, as well as, I would argue, opportunities for enrichment and growth. So if we think about needing sort of both at various times during a student's undergraduate experience. So we have a really tremendous academic coaching team, which helps students really set goals and change behaviors to allow them to navigate the college experience successfully. We have a very strong first year experience program with first year seminars and CAT communities that offer a good web of resources and support. We have, again, as we've mentioned, the tutoring center. We have TRIO programs, which are particularly aimed at supporting students who maybe come from underrepresented groups or low income, first generation, or maybe have a disability. A very active Office of First Generation Students that, again, helps provide kind of overarching support to anybody who's the first in the family to come to college. And again, we have folks who are here to help out with postgraduate fellowships, to think about undergraduate research, all the things that are enriching to that undergraduate experience. The network includes not just things in my unit of student success, but our partners in student life, that the student life network of resources and mentors and activities. I would argue engagement at some level is really a critical component of student success. And that can happen in a lot of places. It happens in the residence halls, it happens in the student organizations, it happens with leadership opportunities, and it happens in the classroom. This student success campus course that I mentioned earlier is a wonderful kind of comprehensive landing place for students to begin exploring the range of possibilities. And it's segmented to help you get access quickly, both in person and virtually. And so I really recommend that as a place to go, because I think you'll discover things, because I certainly haven't mentioned them all, that are interesting and helpful. And when in doubt, just raise your hand. Raise your hand with an advisor, raise your hand in Holton Hall, raise your hand with a faculty member, and we'll do our best to help you navigate and find the right resource for the right need.
Thank you so much. I just love that. Just raise your hand because there's answers out there. And I always say, if you have a question, that means other people have a question too. Let's see. It looks like we have about 5 minutes left. We have about 2 more questions, and then we'll kind of close things out for the night. So this is another question for Lafine. What happens if a student does not have health insurance? What cost will the health center charge for, and what services are free to the students?
Sure, I can answer that one. So students pay a privilege fee. And so really coming and seeing a staff member does not cost a student anything. If they are prescribed a medication, need to do lab work, those sorts of things, those will be billed to your insurance or can be billed directly to the patient. Here at Lafine, we really try to decrease our costs compared to the community. So it's affordable for students to come here and be seen. What's great about Lafine, we have so many different services here. We have sports med providers, we have dermatology, we have women's health, men's health. We have a pharmacy, we have lab, in-house radiology. So we just have a lot of resources all in one place, so students don't have to go around town to get things done. We also have, massage therapy, PT. A lot of students utilize that, especially if they had surgery over the summer, they need to complete their PT. We have those services available here. So.
Great, thank you. And our final question for the night is for Robert Gomez. How can I tell which scholarships have been applied to my bill? I don't see that they are listed by name of scholarship donor.
You should, if you're aware of how much scholarship you have, you'll be able to see that here on Monday. And I think we may be talking about the fact that all the aid, as I mentioned earlier, has not yet dispersed. It's going to be dispersing this weekend. And so you'll be able to see everything that's gone through, and you'll be able to see at that point all the scholarships that have applied. So that would be one easy way to take a look. If you find that you still, if there is one that's still there, but it has not been applied, go ahead and contact our office. We are at ksu.edu, at finaid.ksu.edu, and drop us an email and we'll take a look at it for you if you got any questions. But you should see it come Monday that the money's been applied to your account.
Great, thank you. Well, that is all the time that we have tonight. I want to thank all of our parents and families for tuning in tonight. Your questions were wonderful. Again, having those fast-paced questions to be able to just go through with our administration is very helpful for the greater community. So thank you for your participation. I'd like to take one quick minute to give you all an update about the parent and family program here at K-State. We have finally announced that we will be holding a completely online Family Day experience on September 12th. And so if you're curious, come check out our parents and family website. We have an updated schedule of online events for our Family Day. And if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, you can also do that on our website. We're www.ksu.edu/parents and family. And our first newsletter of the year, of the academic year, is going out next week. You'll hear information about convocation, week of welcome, and a lot of other great resources. If you have any follow-up questions, or if your question didn't get answered tonight, we'll be following up in the next couple of days. You can also call the Parents and Family Hotline at 785-532-2222. Again, thank you all for being here. Thank you to all of our panelists. We hope to see you all soon, and go Cats.